Good afternoon. This is Yvette Talley. I'm phoning in for the Lathrup Village Election Commission meeting for September 3rd, 2021, and the time is 3:18. Just let me get caught up here. I had some technical difficulties. I apologize for that. I will call the meeting to order at 3:18. And by doing so, I will do a roll call and ask that in accordance with PA 254 of 2020, the member should identify their physical location by stating the county, city, township, or village and state from which he or she is attending the meeting remotely. And I will do a roll call. Roll call is Commissioner Baker,
Present, Addison Township, Oakland County, Michigan.
Commissioner Medley,
Stony Brook, New York, Suffolk County.
and I'm calling from McKinney, Texas, Collin County. And I am present. And we have a quorum. So continuing on with the agenda, if we can have a pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the
United
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I would like a motion and support to approve the agenda for this afternoon.
So moved.
Second.
It would have to come from Dawn.
The second, only, yes. Mhm.
Yeah, I will second.
Okay. And roll call would be Commissioner Medley,
Yes.
and I'm voting yes. And Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Next will be approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes from the August 23rd, 2021 meeting. Approval of the minutes.
I
So
would move
moved.
to approve. Then I'll second.
Okay. I am doing roll call, starting with myself. I'm voting yes. Commissioner Baker
Yes.
and Commissioner Medley.
Yes.
Motion carried. At this time, we'll entertain public comments for the items that are on the agenda, and the speakers are limited to 2 minutes. At this time, it's public comments. Do we have any public comments at this time?
Yeah, I have my hand raised.
I don't know how to raise my hand from the phone.
Yeah, I've got my hand raised as well.
Okay, is that Mayor Pro Tem Cantor?
Yes.
Okay, you will be first.
Hi, this is Bruce Cantor of 18129 Sunnybrook in Lathrup. I just have, I reviewed the letter from Butzel Long very quickly before the meeting. And I have one question for them when you guys get into your discussion. It looked like Marvin Poole's, I'm sorry, Marvin Miller's.
More.
Marvin Moore.
I'm sorry, Marvin Moore, sorry. Marvin Moore's application there was not an issue with it when it seemed like, at least relative to the others who were disqualified, had the most egregious omission, which was not indicating that he was a US citizen, which is something obviously the city would have needed to know at that time, as it's a requirement for the position. So I guess I would just like to hear a little bit of a discussion in terms of why that particular one was allowed given that particular error. So, and you can comment on that when you get into the detail if you want. So that's all I have.
Thank you. And was that Commissioner Medley who had her hand up?
I have my hand up.
Okay, I can't tell who, so I'll just
sorry.
let whoever can see that. I can't. See
Councilman
who
Ferguson.
put her hand up. Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
I can. You
Okay.
can proceed.
Yeah, so I would agree with Mayor Pro Tem Cantor. Marvin Moore after reviewing his affidavit, just wanted to confirm with Butzel why that information wasn't reviewed carefully and what was that recommendation based on?
Thank you. Are there any more public comments?
Yes, can you hear me? This is Karen Miller.
I can.
You can't? You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, all right, sorry, I'm on the phone.
No,
Couldn't get
that's
in on
okay.
the
So am
computer.
I.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
so am I,
all right.
No problem.
The question I have is that says that I didn't turn in 2 copies. I have a receipt of nominating petitions filed, signed by Kelda London when I turned this in on July 20th, and attached here too, 2 affidavit of identity, and there's a check mark there. So I'm not sure what the issue is.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Okay, if there are no comments or hands raised, I can't. Yes, hello?
Hi, this is Mark Disick. I don't know who was disqualified and who wasn't. Was that information sent out?
We haven't gotten to that point on the agenda yet.
Okay, thank you.
That will be next.
Yvette, there's a person named Martha Moore who says she has a question.
Marsha Moore, okay. Please speak, ma'am.
Yes, I'm Martha Moore. Yes, I did have a question. So I want to make sure I understood because we were late getting on to the meeting. So did you say that Marvin Moore was disqualified because he is not a U.S. citizen?
No, the opinion letter doesn't address it. There were some questions raised as to why it wasn't addressed in the opinion letter because he failed to check off a box on his application, his affidavit of identity. That was the question.
Well, what was the box that he didn't check off, that you're saying he didn't check off?
There was a box where a candidate would attest if they were a U.S. citizen or not, and it was not completed.
And therefore that invalidates his petition?
Well, that's the question that the attorneys that drafted the opinion letter will address.
Okay, thank you.
Yvette, Barb has her hand up.
Okay, you may speak next.
Barb, you're on mute. Barb, you're still on mute.
Hello?
There you go, Barb. There you go.
Okay. I too have an affidavit, a receipt where it's marked that I did have 2 affidavits of identity. So I just want to show that that was received. Don't know what happened to it, but it was received according to Kelda, who received my petition.
Pull that up, honey.
Are there any other public comments?
Hi, Yvette, this is Greg Rivolo.
Yes, hi.
Following in suit, I have a stamped copy that my affidavit was received as well.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, that will be the end of this public comment time, and we will move on to item number 7, which is the action request for consideration approval of 7A, receive legal opinion and implement recommendation therein. And I will
Before we
yield the
take
floor
a
to
motion
Ms.
on-
Therein.
Sorry. Before we take a motion on this, I would like to give either Stephen or Beth an opportunity to maybe address some of the questions that or comments that were raised during the public comment section before we act on this.
Thank you. I just want to point out that Joe Rachat also butts along, is on the phone. He's identified as BH-conference room M. And I believe Steve or Joe, one of you going to respond to the questions?
Steve?
Yes.
Can I ask oh, shoot, was all of the paperwork reviewed? I'm sorry, I'm just finally getting to the end of this letter that we got 10 minutes before.
I think
was everything reviewed? All of the nominating petitions?
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Yes, everything was reviewed that was provided to us. Yes.
I don't see all of the candidates listed in this letter, so I'm just wondering if all of the candidates' affidavits and petitions were submitted.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure here with the rules of order. Are we in public comment phase? I'm not sure who the 248 number is speaking.
That's Karen Miller. That's me. I'm speaking. As I said, I just got to the end of the letter and saw that. I'm sorry that it wasn't in the public comment section.
No, after our review, we had Karen Miller, I'm sorry for butchering any names, Barbara Canese and Greg Rivolo were missing a copy of an affidavit of identity.
I understand what you're saying, but were all of the candidates' forms, was everything looked at?
Each name should be addressed on the letter.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't see it, but.
If there's a name that is not addressed, please let us know.
And for clarification, Steve, the names that are listed in the letter are based on the names that we received from the city, correct?
Correct.
All right. So if anyone's aware of any names that are missing that need to be reviewed, certainly let us know and we'd be more than happy to supplement our letter.
And that would be the same with the affidavits. We based the letter on the documents that we were provided. If there are 2 affidavits, then we just failed to receive the other one.
That's correct. I agree with Beth. If it's simply a question of us not having received all of the paperwork from the city and that those affidavits, or at least both copies of them, were filed, then Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that would address the concern that was raised, at least with everyone except for Mr. Moore.
Yes, if there's a copy of the affidavit of identity, and if it was filed with the clerk, then yes, that would alleviate the issues with the missing affidavit of identity. is there any further questions?
Steve, I think the first question that we received, and this may have been from Mr. Cantor, regarded Marvin Moore's affidavit of identity and the failure to certify that he's a United States citizen that meets all of the requirements for office. Can you speak to that issue?
Yes, I re-reviewed the materials and saw that, yes, in fact, he did not check the box for US citizenship. And so our recommendation letter should be supplemented to note that.
And then just for clarity, and then to clarify for members of the commission, that would then place him on the ineligible list for printing on the ballot. Is that correct?
Yes, under section 558, under the Michigan Election Code, a statement, it's required that there be a statement that a candidate is a citizen of the United States. If reviewing that Mr. Moore did not check that box, that would be a disqualification. So we would have to supplement our recommendation to show that.
So my understanding is that if in fact, and if Kelda can verify this, that there were 2 copies of each affidavit of identity submitted, then those would, for Mr. Ruvalo, Ms. Miller, and Ms. Knez, that would remove them from the disqualification list. And the only individual that would remain on the disqualification list would be Mr. Moore.
Correct, assuming that he does not have an affidavit of identity that includes a statement that he is a citizen of the United States.
I have no further questions.
So Scott, I do have a question. So essentially what we have here is someone checked a box asserting that someone submitted 2 affidavits, but yet we don't have copies of those affidavits. Is that correct? Or we do have those?
Well, that's what I was asking Kelda to confirm. The packet that goes out is, correct me if I'm wrong, Yvette or Kelda, but it is a carbon, the affidavit identity that when you fill it out, I think you automatically get 2 or 3, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of them. This is Yvette speaking. And I think we just have to go back through the paperwork. Maybe it just wasn't scanned in, but I do believe.
And then there's also
affidavit of identity.
And there's also the receipt of help me back.
Yeah.
Receipt of petitions.
Yeah, but they need the affidavit of identity for everyone. So they said it was missing for a few people. So if you can just pull those and confirm that you have them, and if they have a receipt, then you should have them.
Yes.
Okay, and then the other question I have, so if we have receipt of those documents, that's one thing. The other thing, though, when we initially started down this path, is there were empty spaces and questions that were not answered. So we've just talked about someone that we couldn't go ahead and allow to participate because they left their citizenship question blank. We also had someone else who didn't put their birth date, and I think there was something else. So if we had incomplete applications, even if somebody submitted the 2 copies of affidavit, why are those applications being allowed to move forward?
Excuse me, birth date isn't required, just recommended.
Again, I'm asking for a legal opinion. I am not asking for a candidate's opinion.
Well, okay, but that is why I didn't fill it out. It's recommended, not required.
So could someone from the attorney's office please speak to that?
So this is Joe Rashad. I'm happy to address that. Under MCL 168.558, subsection 2, there is a list of items that are required. And whoever the speaker was a moment ago who indicated that the date of birth is not required, at least under the listing of items that are required under subsection 2, the date of birth is not listed as a mandatory filing requirement. So while it's unfortunate that information is not in there, it does not appear to be a disqualifying condition, at least under that statutory section. And I'll ask Mr. Etherly to speak to that as well. And Steve, just if you could confirm for us.
Yes. Even under the Bureau of Elections Officials Manual, Appendix 1, page 26, it says that the date of birth is not required, but it's recommended. So that was the position that we took when reviewing this, because it's not required under the Michigan election law, and that the Bureau of Elections guidance says that that is correct. That is the position we took.
Would it be helpful to this body if we read to you the requirement of MCL 168.558 subparagraph 2, which is what we were relying upon?
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
Sure. I happen to have a copy of that in front of me. I'm more than happy to read it. It reads, an affidavit of identity must contain the candidate's name and residential address, a statement that that the candidate is a citizen of the United States, the title of the office sought, a statement that the candidate meets the constitutional and statutory qualifications for the office sought, other information that may be required to satisfy the officer as to the identity of the candidate and the manner in which the candidate wishes to have his or her name appear on the ballot. If a candidate is using a name that is not a name that he or she was given at birth, the candidate shall include the affidavit of identity, shall include on the affidavit of identity the candidate's full former name.
So essentially, the only issue at this point that is not that we're looking at is we had one candidate who failed to indicate their citizenship. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Yes, I believe all the other candidates filed a sufficient number of affidavits. The other information that was omitted was not required information under the statute that was just read. So,
okay. So then with that, then this recommendation from the attorney's office would change, and it would essentially be that Karen, Barb, and Greg actually should not be removed because we do believe that they filed 2 affidavits. And the other information, the only person who would technically be affected is Marvin because he failed to indicate citizenship. Is that correct, Scott? Your understanding?
that's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
And Steve, or could you would confirm that?
That's correct. However, that's based on the assumption that you do have the affidavits, and it just didn't provide them to us, but it really does exist.
Cheryl, are you able to speak to that at this time?
Yes, all 3 candidates have 2 copies of their affidavits of identity on file.
Okay.
Just a quick question to Butts Along. So regarding declaring the race that, or should I say the term that candidates needed to select, is that not a requirement to be filled in?
Steve?
Under the statute, one second, just
As he's looking at that, I
say
see
the
that
title of
there's
the
a,
office sought must be put. Yes, that is correct.
What was the response? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, I
I'm
missed
sorry.
it.
Under section 558, subsection 2, yes, a requirement for the affidavit of identity is that the title of the office sought should be on there. Without that, it is disqualification.
Okay, but that doesn't have to do whether or not somebody is indicating primary versus general election, correct? That's a different issue.
I don't believe we had an issue where any candidate did not put indicate what their position was.
I think that was one of the
Mr. Ferguson, I'm going to ask that only at this point, only commissioners of the election commission speak freely. Any other participants or audience members would need to wait until the next public comment section.
So I have a couple questions here. So I just want to be sure. I went and I wrote down everything you said that was required. So somebody did not have to indicate if they were running for the primary or the general election on this form. Is that what you're saying? Because I believe we did have a candidate that didn't indicate if they were doing primary or general.
That's correct, Steve. And on page, the documents that I sent you, page 45 of 60, the affidavit of identity and receipt of filing from Ms. Knez, under the section office sought / ballot information, there's no indication on there whether it's the primary election or the general election. However, it is contained on her nomination petition that she's running for city council member at the general election, November 2nd, 2021. I think that's the question that's being asked.
I'm sorry, what pages was that, Scott?
It was page 45 of 60 of the packet that we submitted for review. If I could share my screen, I could put it up there for you.
Yes, she wrote city council member under her affidavit of identity for what the office is.
Correct. I think what the question that was raised though is, and I can't tell if you could see where my cursor is, but right here on section 3 of the affidavit identity, the bubbles aren't checked off.
Yes, I see that.
But as I indicated on her nominating petition, she did indicate general election, November 2nd, 2021, city council member.
Okay.
Yeah, our recommendation was based off that that she wrote down the title of the office sought, city council member.
Okay. And then the only other question that I have, we seem to have resolved the issue regarding that. Do we have to know anything about party affiliation when people file?
No, not for our local elections.
Okay. And then it's also okay if they leave off whether or not they're doing a partial or a general, or a partial or a regular term. We don't have to know that.
From the materials provided, we determined what they are running as, either partial or general.
Okay.
By the nomination petition and the affidavit of identity.
So you took both of those things and not necessarily the form they completed. Is that correct?
Yes, we looked at their complete materials.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not the attorney in the room and I had lots of questions. So thank you for answering those questions.
That's why we're here.
I don't have any other questions.
Neither do I. At this point, I'd make a, well, before I make a motion. So my understanding is Butts Along will amend their opinion letter to reflect the only candidate that should be removed from the ballot is Marvin Moore.
Yes, based on the representation that the 2 copies of the affidavits have been received on those other candidates, we will make that amendment.
So I would move that the Election Commission accept the.
Excuse me, Mr. City Attorney, I'm sorry for interruption. This is Yvette. Can we remove it from the table? We tabled it in our August 23rd meeting. So if we can remove it from the table for discussion.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate
You're
that. I
welcome.
totally forgot that. So I'd make a motion to remove this from the table.
I will second that.
Roll call to remove this item from the table. Commissioner Baker,
Yes.
Commissioner Metley,
Yes.
and I am voting yes. Motion carried to remove this item from the table.
I would move to receive the legal opinion from Butts Along, and based upon that legal opinion that's been amended today verbally on the record, I would move to remove Marvin Moore from the ballot. All other candidates that submitted would remain in the elections that they submitted for.
I would second that.
Okay, it's been moved in second. Roll call. Commissioner Medley,
Yes.
I am voting yes. And Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Motion carried. Proceeding on with the agenda. Item number 8, public comment. And if there are any public comments, I can't
Yvette,
see
Barb
them,
has her
but-
hand up and Kelly has her hand
Okay.
up. And Greg
Okay,
has his
then
hand
we'll-
up.
Okay, so we're going to go in that order. Barb Canez, Mayor Garrett, and Mr. Rivolo. You may speak.
I just have one question. As somebody who's never run for public office before and turning in all these forms and getting this all done in a timely manner, I appreciate the help that we were given, but it does seem some things were overlooked at the time we turned it in. I'm just wondering if that's something that the city clerk typically goes over before it's submitted to for further consideration, or are we just handing them in blind and hoping, crossing our fingers that we did it all right? I'm just wondering where does one go for help with something like this if you've never run for office before? I guess that's my question.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Mayor Garrett?
and quickly, Barb, just so
sorry.
you know, we don't typically respond back
Yeah,
and forth
we
with
can't.
questions.
Yeah.
Oh,
But folks can
Yeah.
help you with that.
I'm telling you, I'm new to all of this. So yes, this is new to me. So that is my comment. I appreciated the help I got, but I guess it would be nice when we do come in for help that it's available and we're given some guidance. I think that would have been helpful to prevent us from getting to this point. That's my comment.
Mayor Garrett?
One, I want to say thank you to Butts Along so much for doing all this. And then I will address it because I can say this, that the city clerk is not to give legal advice when it comes to filling out the affidavits. It is where you have to seek out what the information is, and that is reading everything in its entirety and making sure that everything is filled out to the best of your recollection for that. Because again, it is not the right or legally, the city clerk is not to give out legal advice. And that is, and I'm going to lean to Attorney Scott and all the other attorneys on the call, that is not what they're supposed to do. So, one, again, I appreciate so much for going through this. I think that you all did a thorough investigation for this. I think that it's unfortunate that we got to this point, because I think that this cost the city a lot of money because it was focused on one particular candidate. And what happened is that we ended up looking at all candidates. And again, I really appreciate that we got to understand what I guess I understand everything that happened. And yeah, I appreciate it. And if you have any other further questions or concerns, I think that our city attorney, Scott Baker, is available to talk to anyone via email or in person. And of course, I always give myself up to be able to talk to anybody whenever you would need to speak. And so that's it. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And Mr. Rivolo?
Yeah, so thank you so much. I just wanted to say, if the form was filled out incorrectly or incompletely by so many candidates, not only in our city, but who knows what other cities this is happening within, that it tells me that there's a clear sign that there's something wrong with the form. So maybe it's not clear. Obviously, it should be addressed with the Director of Elections office for the county. So as to not to dwell on the past, but looking towards the future, I just wanted to say thank you to Butts Along and the Election Commission for your review and your discussion. Thank you.
Yvette,
Thank you.
and Ian had raised his hand.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ferguson, please.
Yeah, just a couple of points here. So, and this is regarding submitting the affidavit to the city. So the city gave these candidates more than enough time to gather signatures, review the application, as well as read over what the rules and regulations are, what the laws are in the state. And again, I would have to defend the mayor's statement. It's not the city's responsibility for you to complete your affidavit, number one, in a timely manner, number two, correctly. If you do miss boxes that you should check, that is totally on you, because the information is out there. You can go to Oakland County, you could consult other council people that have run for the first time and had to go through the same thing. And you could have submitted your application well in advance of the July deadline. So there's absolutely no excuse that you missed a box or you didn't put your birth date in there. That's just totally on you. The other observation is, I'm not quite comfortable with how Butts Along handled the review of these applications and affidavits. For example, you totally missed Marvin Moore's box where he did not review and confirm that he's an American citizen. And we went through all of these applications to highlight what these issues were. We basically handed that over. Now, if there was a ball drop between the city of Lathrup Village and or our city attorney going into Butts Along's submission or of information, then we'll take ownership of that. But the way it was handled today, I think some of the candidates are feeling like, okay, what happened there? Why are we kind of re-reviewing information when it should have been reviewed a week ago? I'm saying this because I'm not running, and I'm going to become a private citizen. And you want people that feel comfortable running for these offices. And if they have to, go through this gauntlet of lawyers that basically didn't do everything correctly, then they're going to get frustrated. So that's my observation. I mean, I appreciate you guys taking it up, but at the end of the day, what's going to happen now is you're going to have citizens saying, council people on at Lathrup Village were trying to suppress our ability to run. They don't care whether or not.
Councilmember Ferguson, you're at your 3 minutes. I'm sorry.
Yep, I'm all set, and that's all I have to say.
I'd like to speak. I don't know how to raise my hand on the phone.
Yvette, can you recognize Karen Miller?
Yes. You may go ahead with your public comment, Ms. Miller.
All right, thank you. I just want to point out that questions were initially raised on July 23rd, 3 days after the filing deadline, as to what was going on with a candidate that all of a sudden appeared on the candidate list at that point. The office sought information, is not listed on the affidavit of identity, and I believe what was read said that was something that was required. The term is not on there, and also the term was not listed on their petition. So, you know, this came as a couple of simple questions more than a month ago, and that question still has not been addressed or answered or whatever. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Are there any more public comments?
Scott, Beth has offered to respond to the comments. Is that appropriate at this time or not?
I mean, if Beth, if you'd like to have at it, I don't feel that it's necessary, but I'll leave that decision up to you.
You know, I was starting to type that unless, you know, if you feel a need for us to respond. I guess I will say that Mr. Baker wanted to be sure that Butzel went in this with no preconceived ideas of anything. So we were provided with the documents last week, and we were simply asked to see if there were any issues that we saw and whether it looked like, you know, anybody did not qualify. And so the issues, if things were raised before in your meetings, we were unaware of that. And I think that was purposeful, so that, as I said, we went in with open eyes. And again, this was done with only a week. And so this is our first, we just provided our opinion letter to you, and it would have been draft if you didn't have the meeting today, to ask questions such as, you know, we're missing affidavits for a second affidavit for the following people. Do you have those in your record? So those are the type of things that, you know, we had hoped to discuss today, and I'm glad that they came out. So thank you.
Your letter does address that missing information, and the office saw it as a
I'm
note
sorry, we're
number
not
one.
doing back and forth comments. So that was a public comment there. So
yeah.
So Yvette, could I be recognized?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead,
Thank you.
Commissioner Metley. Yes, you're welcome.
So one of the things that I want to say just about this entire process is I am very appreciative of the fact that the city collected these documents, that they delivered them. And, you know, I don't have any issue with the scrutiny that was done to these documents. I think this was exactly where we needed to be, so everybody can feel like, you know, they've been seen, their concerns have been noted. What I will say is just even in this meeting, with the exchanges that were had and different things, there is so much animosity leading up to this election and through this process that I truly hope that it will be a very well thought out, you know, everybody looking for not what is in their best interest, but what is in the best interest of the city. And so I'm very hopeful that the candidates will be able to do that now and move beyond. There'll be no shadow that no one was really truly eligible, and that everybody is going at it from a standpoint of not how do they take one another down, but instead how they're going to build Lathrup Village up. And so that's the most important thing to me. And when I found out that I was going to be nominated to serve on this committee, I will tell you that I really had a pit in my stomach, because anytime that you have to go and you have to do deep dives and look at these things, I'm afraid that people are going to end up unhappy, or they're going to feel like they were treated unfairly. I feel like this was a very thorough and fair review done by humans, and pretty unemotional. So I thank the attorneys, I thank the folks who worked on this, and I just hope that the election brings out this much passion in everyone.
Thank you. Well said. I agree. Are there any other public comments? Any hands raised? If there are none?
No, Yvette, we're clear.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. If there are none, I would like to call this meeting for an adjournment, please. If I can have a motion in a second.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. This meeting has adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.